Azad. Next on the agenda is the keynote session, along with the question and answer session by Toastmaster Rohit Bhasin. Our speaker for the keynote session is a communication consultant from the UK. He is the president of his Toastmasters Club Society Speakers. He was the 2019 District 91 and 2020 District 12 Humorous Speaking Champion. He also finished in second place at this year's District 91 International Speech Contest. His session title is Only Connect. Please welcome Toastmaster Dan Magill onto the virtual stage. Dan Magill, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Could I ask you to join me in a room for a few minutes? It's a room that doesn't exist anymore, actually. Because some rooms only really ever exist once, don't they? The next time you go into that room, the furniture will be different. The people will be different. The sound, the smell, the atmosphere will be different. You will be different. The room I want to take you to today existed in London in December 2019. It was a bitterly cold winter's night, but there was a cozy warmth inside the room. One by one, people began to arrive for that night's meeting. I was club president. I loved being club president. But I'd been lucky. I'd had no problems, no hard decisions to make. Until that night. Let's go back there for a moment now and join me as I give my president's address. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, welcome to our club. It's so great to see so many of you have made it out to join us on such a cold, cold night. But you'll be glad you did. What a fantastic evening we have in store for you. First up, we've got David, who's going to be talking to us about the launch of his latest book. Our second speaker will be Amina, who'll explain this new Zoom app, which she predicts we'll be using in Toastmaster meetings before the end of 2020. I don't think so, Amina. There's more chance of me cancelling my round-the-world trip next year. And third up, we've got Kelly with her icebreaker speech. I remember I tried to persuade Kelly to be the first speaker that night. David and Amina were both very experienced, and believe me, I know how hard it is to follow strong speakers. But Kelly wanted to put off her icebreaker for as long as she could, to wait until the last possible moment. And we all know that feeling, don't we? She joined 3 months earlier, and she hadn't spoken at all in any of the meetings so far. So I didn't put any pressure on her. I suggested she might want to speak first. She said no, and that was it. The meeting swung into action. Round one, David. Up came David, a great speaker, an author, a success. I don't remember much about his speech. I'm sure it was fantastic, but none of it has stayed with me. David has so many of the qualities we'd all want as speakers, but he did find it difficult to really connect with his audience. Round two, Amina. Amina took to the stage telling us all about this newfangled Zoom app. By the end of 2020, I predict that more and more clubs will be holding their entire meetings via Zoom. New technologies like Zoom are providing us with better ways to be together, better ways to collaborate, and better ways to connect. At the end of the talk, Amina asked for a show of hands. She asked how many of us see ourselves attending a Toastmasters meeting online in the next 12 months. We all raised our hands, because that's what people do, isn't it? None of us believed it for a moment. If you told me there and then that within 6 months I'd be delivering speeches half naked, live from the Golden Gate Bridge, I'd have laughed at you. Round 3, Kelly. As she stepped into the ring, I caught David and Amina sharing a competitive glance. They knew they'd both spoken well, and it would be hard for the audience to choose which one of them would win the Best Speaker award for the evening. Mr. President, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I'm Kelly, and today I want to tell you a little bit about me. And then silence. There were no more words because Kelly couldn't physically get them out. Her whole body was shaking. Her face and neck were bright red, and from my ringside seat, I could hear her heart beating out of her chest. Give her a few seconds, I thought to myself. She'll get over the initial panic and she'll be okay. But a few more seconds came and went, and Kelly still hadn't managed to say anything else. And then a tear started to run down her left cheek, and another one down her right cheek. And then she was crying. This terrified woman, who must have spent her entire life dreading this moment, was stood in front of us, crying. You could have heard a pin drop in the audience. Nobody was looking at their phone. Nobody was typing an email. Nobody was daydreaming. Nobody was wondering where they could buy David's book or download Zoom. Every heart and mind in that room was gripped by this woman, who was communicating absolutely everything to us without saying a word. And there it was, my first challenge as president. Do I step in and end Kelly's agony, start a round of applause, save her from the situation she's in? Or do I just wait for her to decide enough is enough and run back to her seat or out of the room, maybe never to be seen again? I was caught contemplating, like a rabbit in the headlights. Kelly was caught like a boxer on the ropes, the knockout punch about to be delivered. But then, like a scene from a Rocky movie, Kelly began to fight. Through the tears came some words, then some more words. Then she lifted her head and looked directly at us for the first time. She was still crying, but she was punching too. Kelly was fighting tooth and nail for every single word. And it was mesmerizing. It took Kelly 16 minutes to complete her 4 to 6 minute icebreaker speech. And they were 16 minutes that nobody in that room will ever forget. Her body and her mind fought against her every step of the way. But something else fought back. And whatever that something else was, it won. Through the tears, we couldn't really understand what Kelly was saying. But that didn't matter. Because stood in front of us that night was a woman fighting for every breath, fighting to be heard, fighting to connect. Kelly used no fancy words or state-of-the-art technology. but she connected with her audience that night like nobody I've seen before or since. It was the first time I've known every single audience member vote for the same person as best speaker. It was a unanimous decision, a knockout. And as she came up on stage to collect her Best Speaker award, I caught David and Amina applauding with admiration and delight. I congratulated Kelly. She said she was so embarrassed that she'd only won because people felt sorry for her. David and Amina were both so much better than me, she said. And of course, it's understandable that she thought that. We'd all think that, wouldn't we? And maybe that's because none of us really truly understand what it is to connect with an audience. We have our advanced clubs, our world champions, our DTMs, our ACGs, our top speakers who've learned every trick in the public speaking book, except often how to connect. But if you are a more experienced speaker, if you don't suffer with your confidence, if you've overcome your public speaking paralysis, what can you possibly learn from Kelly's story? If you went up on stage and pretended you couldn't get any of your words out before breaking down in tears, it wouldn't be real. It would be disingenuous. It would be ridiculous. But I think that in Kelly, the lesson is stood there right before us. And it is a lesson for all of us. Be real, be authentic, be you. No matter what you're talking about, find ways to show the audience your frailties, your little victories, your passions, your worries, your hopes, your dreams, your humor, your bravery, your spirit, yourself. Let your audience see the real you. And if you truly do that every time you speak, they'll see themselves in you and they will connect. When you're preparing a talk, think more about what you would like to hear as an audience member and less about what you would like to say as a speaker. Pause. Always pause. Give your audience time to process what you're saying. Give them time to feel pain, sympathy, time to laugh, time to connect. Always make your audience react, surprise them, challenge them, annoy them, entertain them. Do something. There is no tip, no trick, no technique in speaking that's more important than connection. The founder of Toastmasters, Ralph Smedley, was once asked what he thought made a great speaker. He said, all the best speakers share one quality, and that's connection. He said, when a speaker can connect with their audience, they'll transcend their message and form an individual bond with each and every person in the room. On that cold night in London, Kelly transcended her message, and Kelly formed an individual bond with every person in the room. So although she'd never spoken in front of an audience before, and she could barely get her words out, on that night, in that room, Kelly was a great speaker. And I'm still to see anybody more deserving of a Best Speaker award than that brave, resilient, inspirational young lady. And if you need more evidence of how brave she is, After the meeting that night, I half jokingly suggested to Kelly that she'd come and give the speech again the following night at one of my other clubs. She looked at me like I'd just pointed a gun in her face. And then she said yes. Of course, the following night, we were in a different room with different furniture, different people, different sounds, smells, atmosphere, and a different Kelly. She got through her speech without a single tear. It was an amazing speech about her lifelong battles with confidence. She won Best Speaker. Thank you.
Let us unmute ourselves and give him a real round of applause.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Dan. So there's a question and answer section now.
Yes, and since Rohit is not there, I'll be doing that. So
Sure.
now, a timer, will you please time for 5 minutes? And if anybody has any questions, please raise your hands and you can directly ask to Dan about all your queries.
I don't have a question, but I wanted to, sorry.
Yes, any compliments, any...
Yeah, I want to say something. So when Dan was talking, I felt it's not Kelly he's talking about Manju. I think this was something a year ago. I was exactly like, I have dreaded for days when somebody would say, okay, you have to present something here on this day. And I will have sleepless nights. I don't know. I every time I would just sleeping and dreaming, okay, what I'm going to do. I would like literally freeze. I can't explain that feeling being there at the stage and, trying to even breathe. I felt I would feel as if I'm going to get a heart attack soon. Literally, I think whatever you said today, I've connected to each and everything. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Dan. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I think that's how we train our brains, right? Train our brains to just remove the negative talks and have the self-affirmation and self-talks with ourselves. That's very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think Dan Magill gave more informative and he gave us more confidence actually. Like, don't sit back. He has given a confidence to come out ourselves. And I think like this, the video that you have recorded, Dan Magill, I think you should share across everybody. The speech actually.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Malya.
Thank you, Deepthi. Dan, first of all, thanks a lot for such an inspiring speech. It connects to each and everyone who are in this Toastmaster here, as well as across global. Everybody who started in the Toastmaster have gone through one or the other way through a Kelly's experience. My question to you is, how important is mindfulness practice to become a best Toastmaster?
Thank you. I don't know. It's not something that I deliberately do. I think when I first started out, I was Kelly, and I expected that I was going to get up there on stage and probably exactly what happened to her would happen to me. And I think that's why, as we've already heard from a couple of people, that's why people connect with this story, because whilst we might not have all had an experience quite that bad, we've probably all expected to have one that bad. So to actually see it happen to someone else is quite powerful. But yeah, I was 4 years ago when I first joined, absolutely terrified. I'd never spoken. And I remember at the time looking into things like mindfulness and these practices that can help us. And I didn't go too deep into it, but there were a few techniques, just having that silent time before and just things which are quite a distant memory now, and they're not things that I really do with speaking anymore, but they did really help me at the time. And there are definitely lots of things out there that can help people. I'm not an expert in it though.
Thanks, Dan. And probably one thing I would look at is if in future Kelly kind of person has to come and speak in front of the audience for the first time. Is it possible that a platform is given to the first-time speaker where she can get trained and come in front of the audience, so that becomes a little more comfortable, because it may sometimes it could be a contrast result instead of what has happened to Kelly.
Yeah, I think it really helps. I mean, Toastmasters is kind of that platform, isn't it? It is the place to come and practice. But that Toastmasters can be daunting for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people come and watch, and they'll watch a session and think, no, it's too much. I can't do that. So you're right, it would be helpful. And Zoom has actually helped a lot with my club, where I'm president, in that we got 3 new members towards the start of the year, and they were all going to do their icebreaker speech on the same night. And we actually got together just as a group, me with the 3 of them on Zoom the night before, and they all did their speech. And yeah, they all said it helped them a lot, and they all did a great job the next night. So I think now that we've got this Zoom technology, it makes it easier just to have those sessions. It doesn't take a big chunk of time out of anyone's day, and you can maybe just have 3 or 4 people before they do it in front of more people the following evening. And obviously, if that's possible in person, then that's great as well. But it can get a bit time consuming, I suppose. But people have always got people they can practice a speech in front of, whether it's a Toastmasters group or family and friends. And that's something I always did at the beginning as well. And that helps a lot, because I'm more terrified of doing it for my family than I would be for Toastmasters, actually.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The timer has shown us the red light. Christopher, I have sent you the certificate. Can we present Dan his certificate?
Can we move on to our next segment?
Yeah. We have a few more guests, not guests, member. Pooja is our member, and she has joined us. Ruchika is also in